Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Dark Souls 2 OST reaction. And I'm actually going to start this video off by saying something very, very controversial about From Software games. And it's this. For every 2 to 3 things that Dark Souls 2 does wrong, there's one thing it does right that almost makes it completely unique to the rest of not only the Dark Souls trilogy, but the rest of the series. And I had the impression that Hayao Miyazaki or whoever else was around for like Stoid, they kind of wanted Dark Souls 2 to have a very more interesting sort of story to it. Because for those who don't know, Dark Souls 2 is sort of follows the beats and progressions that the first game follows, except, you know, a little bit more of it. And the path is literally open from the very beginning to who you decide to fight and who you decide to go up against. Most people technically do go and go through the route of the last giant, which then will lead you all the way to the Lost Sinner. And while, again, Dark Souls 2, the fights in it, some people call them gimmick fights, some people say they're just sort of underdeveloped, and some people say that they're bad at both of these. I, however, do think that if they would have worked absolutely fine if there was like a far more linear sort of story with Dark Souls 2, or if there was more than 2 endings available to this game, because again, for those who don't know, the game ends very much the same as the first game ends. You could either choose to sit on the throne in what looks like the remnants of the Kiln of the First Flame, or you could reject power and want, and you could pursue your own path, just wandering through the darkness with nothing but a torch and your memories to keep you alive. None will have any meaning, and you won't even care. And then there comes to Dark Souls 2's version of Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. I say Lord of Cinder. Well, that's not particularly fair, because actually Vendrick might be one of the most unique and perhaps one of the most underrated characters of the entire From Software series. But with that being said, there's no denying that the fight, Vendrick's fight basically encompasses a lot of my opinions about the game, because it's not really a fight. You don't really fight Vendrick, because, okay, you go all the way through Drangleic Castle, you go through the Shrine of Amara, you go through the Undead Crypt, you fight off his protector, Velstadt, you wander into his arena, and what you could do is collect the King's Ring, which will take you through another area, and basically you go through a lot of stuff, and then you go all the way to a place called Dragon Shrine, and get the Ashen Mist Heart from the Ancient Dragon. You can fight it if you want to. Most people don't, because that fight also sucks for different reasons. And basically, once you have the Ashen Mist Heart, you can collect Giant's memories, and if you collect all of them, you can fight Vendrick with his health. Well, his defense is significantly decreased, because for a very interesting design element they put into this is the idea that in order to actually kill Vendrick, or to at least have a chance at this fight, you have to collect Giant Souls in order to reduce his defense, and it means he will die in probably less than 5 minutes. And I've done this before, ladies and gentlemen, and defeating Vendrick in 5 minutes is still a bit of a tough ask. One-shotting him is something I think probably one-shotting Vendrick is harder to one-shot than the Four Kings. And I've seen people one-shot the Four Kings before, but Vendrick is is difficult for even that as well, because for whatever reason, well, I know what the reason is that King Vendrick, his entire moveset consists of wandering, slopping back and forth, and then occasionally swiping his sword back and forth, which for some reason will take off half of perhaps the widest health bar with the thickest of armor and will completely shred whatever poise. Because bear in mind, this is towards the end of the game as far as the main game is concerned. So the fact that Vendrick can just sort of just stop you at a moment's notice if you make a mistake, then you're essentially done. I think it's kind of interesting in the sense that Vendrick is supposed to be, well, he is supposed to be still the ruler of Drang Lake, but his soul is so completely foregone in his tomb that the only thing he has left, and the only thing that is keeping him staying, sound in any way, shape, or form, is that he's not going to let anybody get to the Throne of Want, even if he wanders through his tomb for all eternity. But I think the only other way to examine this process is if you actually hear the soundtrack, because much like when you fight Gwyn at the end of Dark Souls 1, it's entirely you're not prepared for Dark Souls' fantastic twist sort of ending fight when you do actually fight Gwyn. And, well, then there's Vendrick. So here is basically Vendrick's OST. So here it is. It's kind of interesting you hear what sounds like whisperings go on in the background, because for those who do know, if you listen to the Pinwheel OST in the first game, there's whisperings of "help me, you did this, I'm sorry," because it all ties into the story for Pinwheel, and I don't necessarily disbelieve the idea was going for King Vendrick. In fact, you could probably also hazard a guess that it's maybe Nashandra, Vendrick's queen, is whispering thoughts to send King Vendrick to slay the giants. That's a theory I conjure up, and maybe if you were trapped in this lonesome place, wandering about with your sword just dragging on the ground, it'd probably send you hollow too. It should also be noted as well is that I wish there was more boss soundtracks like this. Songs that are music that's very somber, very motivated by, I suppose, the surprise that all of the events and everything you fought through, all the places you traversed in Dark Souls 2, it culminates in fighting something that is not really your equal. By the time you get to it's no secret when you fight Vendrick, you are so beyond his league that it's probably no there's probably a good reason why it is technically not the last it's not the last boss fight in the game, but it's also kind of, I don't think it's meant to make you feel good in some ways that you've got to what feels like the end of the game and you've beaten somebody who is not worthy. You've basically done everything you needed to do. King Vendrick, it's the whole point really of this fight is just to put Vendrick out of his misery. It's not like when you fight Sith from the first game where she tries to kill you just to defend her master's grave. It was done through purpose. But what purpose is there really in the idea of Vendrick being kept alive? What exactly does he have to bestow upon his land of Drang Lake? I mean, the giants have been fallen. We have to travel through back in time basically to kill probably more giants than maybe half of Vendrick's forces did, and then we had to slew great soul after great soul, and well, here we are. And it doesn't even feel worth it. Again, it ties so much into the trailer and the beginning of the game. None will have meaning, and you won't even care. And that's kind of, by and large, Dark Souls 2's story, as far as what I believe they were going for, is that you've got to fight for there to be meaning. There's got to be something out there in this place that's got to make you feel, got to bring you to life. Remember, you're walking around and you are called by the Emerald Herald as the bearer of the curse. It is on your shoulders to make any sense out of this. And look at what and that says quite a bit. If we're considered bearers of the curse, and considering the fate of Vendrick, and even before we fight him, what on earth not being cursed at this point is probably past imagining. And there it is. It basically comes to an end like that. It's not done for it's not done for any other reason apart from do you feel good after all of this? In many respects, when you fight again, I have to bring this back to when you fight Gwyn from the first game, and I don't really want to compare it like too much, but when you fight Gwyn, it's a kind of it's also sad, but there's something almost kind of refreshing about it, as though in terms of music, like music, from a music perspective, Gwyn's OST of Plim Plim Pwan, it sounds like tiny flames dancing in the distance amid a shroud of darkness. That, even though the darkness, ironically, was completely of Gwyn's doing, ironically, it's the fact that new flame has emerged, and will it choose to smolder, or will it choose to embrace the world and to emerge as the Lord of Dark, as opposed to carrying on the burden of the curse? Then we cut to Vendrick, and one of the other things I kind of like forgot to like mention that's quite crucial to many other themes that happen in this game is that of ambition. The old Iron King's ambition was to basically have a stopper in death, and he was willing to completely obliterate landscapes. He was willing to enslave those who would oppose him. He was willing to basically use iron to stop the undead curse, and proposed demons made out of smelter in order to oppose all those to intrude him. And then we even take things like Alana, for example, from the Sunken Crown DLC, and how she was willing to manipulate and use sin as a means of worship. And Lysandra again does all of this, because by the time you get to the Throne of Want and you defeat those who guard the Throne of Want, Lysandra follows you, and she is basically willing. But again, Lysandra is not really a good fight either in many respects. But it's kind of interesting how it could be argued that this is only reinforces the point you are so beyond what the world has in store for you that maybe you are the one worthy of actually ascending the throne. That's the very interesting thing about it, is that you've conquered the darkness, you have overcome the trappings and completely obliterated your foes all the way throughout the land of Drang Lake. And then by the time you get to the Throne of Want and you see exactly what you have inherited, does it even matter if you've inherited? You may have inherited a wasteland, but it still means you own the wasteland. It means that it can be whatever you choose to be. If you decide, however, that no, this place offers nothing for you, you could almost go the Dr. Manhattan route and just leave for someplace else. Someplace that perhaps will offer you a proper title, perhaps even a crown. For in Dark Souls 2, probably even more than any others, your strength does befit a crown. And with all that being said and done, I hope all of you guys have enjoyed what's been more of like an interpretation of King Vendrick, and something more equivalent to, like, say, a Vatia video more than anything else. And I hope to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.